Well, as one project starts to wind down, another one is picking up. Hey guys, welcome back to Wood Street Farm. I'm Phil, and for the last several months I've been working on a big pile of wood that was right here. That was the result of renting the Dyna firewood processor. There was an estimated 35 to 40 cords here that needed to be dealt with. The biggest issue with renting that processor, two biggest issues: it put out a lot of wood in a hurry, which was great, but the wood that came off of it was all mixed sizes because of its six-way wedge was the biggest wedge that it had, and I had a number of logs that were too big for the six-way wedge. So I ended up with a lot of stuff that I felt needed to be resplit, and I have spent a lot of time sorting through this wood and stacking wood elsewhere, resplitting what needs to get resplit, moving it, and anyway, it's just been a lot of work. But the other big reason all this sorting and moving has had to happen is because in about a month, a little over a month, we're going to have an event on the farm, our annual flower festival. I've got the field planted with flowers. Everything's coming up great because we've had plenty of rain, but this is our parking area, and this all needs to be cleared so that we have room for as many cars as possible. That's really the driving force behind getting all of this up, is that I need this clear, and my wife has been getting on me about clearing it up. So what I've got left here now is just the last little bit. That pile over there is stuff that needs to be resplit. The crate in the distance is hickory that I can sell for barbecue wood, and as we're sorting through this and we find hickory, we'll throw it over in that crate. And then this pile here right in front of me is stuff that I haven't touched yet. There's still some in here that needs to be resplit. Some of that's the right size, so we still need to go through all that. As you would expect, when you have big piles of wood on the ground, you get a lot of debris at the bottom of the pile, and when it rains, that just turns into a nasty mess. So this stuff here kind of represents what I've pushed around with the tractor a little bit, but most of the wood that's in there is just really filthy. I've been kind of pulling the dirtiest, worst stuff out and putting it here. I have now overflowed that little tray, and I need to find somewhere else to put it. But the other thing I'm working on is the other cleanup, because there is so much debris here on the ground that needs to get picked up. As you may know, burning debris is the fastest way to get rid of it. And I've done big burn piles before. I've done burning up in the parking area when I've got a lot of stuff to get rid of. But last couple days and today, I'm not staying here on the farm. So I want to be able to leave at the end of the day and know that the fire is well contained. So that's why I'm doing it down here. I've got the burn barrel up in the parking lot too, but I haven't been using that lately just because it's a relatively small vessel. You can't fit that much in there at a time, and it just doesn't consume nearly as much as the fire pit. So each of the last couple of days, I've done at least, I would say, 3 to 5 bucketfuls a day in there. A couple days ago, I wasn't really paying that close attention to it, so it was a relatively small fire most of the day. Today, I've done more. I've done 5 or 6 bucketfuls. And you might have noticed when I dumped the load of debris in there, there was already some bigger stuff in the bottom. Here's why. Let me show you. Out across the property, behind the kiln, I've got some woods over here that I've been talking for years about clearing. This is going to be the next major project. Within the next couple of weeks, my neighbor and I are going to go in together and rent a piece of heavy equipment. He's got some work he wants to do. I've got some work I want to do. So we're going to do a monthly rental on a large excavator and a dozer, and we're going to get in here and do some clearing. And bonus, he's actually got a guy who can operate it. So he can get in here, knock down trees. I can do work on the ground with my tractor and chainsaw and help kind of clear the way for him. And I told him to kind of get us a starting point. I was going to go in here and cut down a bunch of smaller stuff. And that's what I've been doing today. I think I took 6 or 7 little trees down today, and I cut them up and drug them over to the fire pit and threw them on the fire. And everything that I've cut down today, with the exception of this little tree here, has gone on the fire pit. This tree is big enough that it can be some firewood. And now I'm ready to get in here and cut down some more. So maybe you can see how my property is. We've got the pond down there, and it comes uphill to where the kiln is, and this is a little bit of a flat spot, and then it goes back downhill and it goes back uphill over there. So this hilltop that I'm standing on next to the kiln continues into the woods in that direction, and that is why we are clearing here. This is kind of my best, flattest spot, so that we will need minimal amount of excavation to get us a good site for a future building and a good site to process a bunch of firewood. The other thing is that this is deeper in my property, so all the loud equipment work, all the chainsaw work can happen a few hundred yards away from where any of our neighbors are. So this has been something I've talked about for a couple years now, and I just haven't had the money to go ahead and tackle this project. I still kind of don't have the money, if I'm honest, but I am justifying it based on the amount of wood that is in here. I spent many thousands of dollars on logs last year, and I don't think I'm going to need to spend any money in the upcoming year, because it's all going to come from here. So for the time being, what I'm going to continue to do is just take a couple trees down at a time, get them all cleaned up, dispose of that debris, and then come back and take a couple more down. It's going to be a few weeks before we can get the machine here and get started. So my goal is to create a bit of a landing zone, or a starting point, so that we have room to drop some of these bigger trees, and then we can start cutting those trees up into logs. We can cut the tops off and have some room to start stacking some of these different piles. There will be a lot of really nice logs in here, some that can be firewood, some that we can possibly put on the sawmill. There's some pine in here that could go in the sawmill, so I want some room to be able to sort stuff as it comes down. And of course there's going to be a whole lot of debris with all the tops of the trees that we're going to have to deal with as well, and I want room to put some of that kind of stuff as well. When conditions permit, if I'm going to be here for a couple days straight, and if there's some rain in the forecast, down in this bottom, down in this area, we can actually have a really big burn pile down there, and that'll allow us to get rid of even more debris, even more faster, more efficiently. So that's really what we should be doing. What I'm doing right now, taking down a tree or two and hauling it away, is not the most efficient way, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. I want to just take down what I can handle, create the little starting point that I'm looking to create, and then once the big machine gets in here, hopefully it has room to move around and has room to put all of the logs and trees that it's going to be taking down. I've got a few logs here that I need to convert into firewood. I've got to move those crates, and then this area here from me to those pine trees down there can also be part of our staging area. So that's another thing that's on my to-do list before the big piece of equipment gets in here. But this is an exciting project because this is going to completely change how I do firewood. And one of the things I waste a lot of time with right now is moving my splitter around and bringing it up to the front and then bringing it back behind the gate where it's out of sight from potential prying eyes. Well, back here, I'm very deep into my property, and I can actually set up a more permanent setup and hopefully will be a lot more efficient with my production down the road when I have lots of nice open flat area to work. So I'm gonna wrap this one up. Thanks for following, guys. If you got questions, comments, you leave those below. If you got suggestions for how I should be thinking about this, what will be the new wood yard over here, you let me know that as well. I'm always interested in hearing your thoughts and feedback, and there'll certainly be more videos on this project coming up in the coming weeks. So thanks, guys. Have a good one. Stay safe. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.